There is a popular belief that one needs to earn a living by working for at least 8 hours every day. In most cases, this barely covers the basic necessities of life. People are forced to spend almost all of their time laboring for someone else's profit, fighting to survive, and this is considered an obligation to society. Employment is not an obligation. No one is morally required to work for a living. We are, however, morally obligated to contribute to the world in a meaningful way. Working to survive and to feed someone else's profit is not contributing to the world. If anything, it only makes the world's problems worse by giving more power to those who crave and abuse power. This false obligation is placed on us by the government, who requires our service to maintain their power through taxes. This employment is the very tool that separates the unjustifiably rich from the rest of society. But if no one was forced to work, wouldn't the world stop functioning? No, it wouldn't. Imagine that everyone was paid a minimum amount of welfare to survive on. They wouldn't have to work, and could explore better ways to contribute to the world. People would still labor to live a more comfortable life, since the bare minimum can only afford the basics. Most people, at least in the West, are not lazy and content to live with the basics. Unnecessary work would disappear and only work that matters would continue. The workforce would certainly change. The government would become leaner and work would become more focused on the essentials. It would be a significant investment for the government, but it is possible just as current welfare, healthcare, education and public housing have all been successful parts of an advanced society. This is just another step in that direction, another step in the evolution of civilization. It is a cost, sure, but it is an affordable cost, much more affordable than the government will admit. In Australia, for example, current welfare takes up only 12% of the GDP. 20% of Australians are already living on welfare and 50% are receiving welfare support of some sort. Giving welfare to the entire population would take up about half of the GDP. It is entirely possible, especially when you consider the insane amount of money wasted on bloated government services that are completely useless and only serve to enforce government control. An example of this is the New South Wales Police Force, which is the third largest in the world and one of the smallest populations in the world, and also the most corrupt. A leaner government leads to more money and more freedom. Government services should be restricted to the basics, instead of the excessively long list of government organizations that represent minority interests, such as Muslims who receive government funding to build mosques. This can only happen in a mature society, where citizens are driven to better themselves and the world around them. The West, excluding immigrants, is capable of such a civilization, where all citizens' needs are met by default. For the government to be the government, it is their obligation to care for the needs of their citizens. Welfare for all is the government's obligation. It is the purpose of government to supply its citizens with all their needs to reach their potential and live a meaningful life. Work in its current form is slave labor. It doesn't have to be this way. But for a better world to happen, citizens need to stand up, start taking responsibility for civilization, and take back the rights and freedoms that the government progressively stole. It is time to unlearn all the government propaganda about employment, and start managing civilization for ourselves. Let our work be meaningful and contribute to society, not to line the pockets of a few with gold.